Here we go. CFB 900 live for Wednesday night. And the next 900 seconds, Bobby and I are going to break down for you the 4 biggest games of the week. We're going to jump to the market and give you a quick snapshot of everything that's happened in the market since Sunday's openers. And before we get you out of here, one more best bet for week 7. Bobby, we are on the clock. Let's get into one of the biggest games of the week, one of my favorite games of the week. South Florida currently laying a short price at North Texas, total of 68. This game has huge implications for the American Conference and most likely the G5 spot in the playoff. The current FanDuel prices on the conference are Memphis plus 240, South Florida plus 380, Tulane plus 390, and North Texas plus 400. So it's a logjam at the top, and this game will help separate each other from who's going to win this American Conference. So, Bobby, how do you break down this game and any leans?
Yeah, and just to kind of mention that too, of course, if you're looking at American futures and have an opinion, now is a great week. You have ECU playing Tulane on Thursday night, obviously this game Friday night. The time to move on those futures, if you have strong opinions on these games, is now. And of course, shop around to different books and make sure you get the best price there. Early money this week on Monday came in on South Florida, pushed them out actually to a favorite in Denton on Friday night. And this morning we saw some North Texas money, making them the 1.5 point favorite that they are right now. While many will want to talk about the offenses in this game, and both are obviously electric with a total in the mid-60s, I'm most interested in the defenses here. This is a game where I mentioned Sunday with Utah State, Hawaii, where there's a huge strength of schedule disparity. According to Sagarin, Mean Green 115th strength of schedule difficulty thus far, and South Florida 39th. I really like the hire of Mean Green defensive coordinator Skylar Cassidy from Sam Houston. He brought over a couple of key components of the Bearcats with a K defense from last year. But there is a little bit of concern there, I think. And while, this is definitely no doubt an improved unit, some concerns here. They're outside the top 100 in rushing success rate defense. That's allowed Mean Green opponents to be in manageable third downs and have success on those late downs, ranking outside the top 100 in that late down success and average third down distance allowed. This has allowed some mediocre offenses like Western Michigan, Army, South Alabama to put up points and compete against the Mean Green in these games. The USF defense, on the other hand, top 60 in EPA and success metrics, despite 40% of this defensive sample being against Florida and Miami. So it's not like and Boise in there too. So obviously the South Florida defense, arguably not a great unit, but they're still performing decently, given kind of the schedule they faced. Obviously, ton of possessions here. North Texas comes off a bye. South Florida played last week, so normal rest here. With kind of the defense, kind of these defensive numbers, I think the Bulls definitely, both teams are probably going to score here, but I think South Florida is a little bit more equipped to maybe get an additional stop. Haven't put money on it, but I do like the South Florida to pull out a tight win on Friday night in Denton.
Moving on to Saturday, noon kickoff in Columbia, Missouri. Alabama currently laying a field goal with a total of 51.5. Bobby, we saw last week Alabama win, but probably the game was closer than what the scoreboard reflected against Vanderbilt. They obviously played Georgia the week prior. This is kind of the third biggest game in a row, whereas Missouri, not really sure if they played anybody quite yet. So how do you break down this one?
Yeah, interesting game. Obviously, Missouri's took some money on Monday from a service release. I know look-aheads were in the 5.5 range, and the services I know took them down all the way down to 3.5, I believe, making it at the flat 3 that it is right now. Obviously, you mentioned the spot. Bama off 2 big games, Georgia and Vandy, which is funny to say, categorizing that as a big game. And Mizzou, they haven't left their home stadium yet. Obviously, basically off 2 byes, one where obviously they didn't play a team last week, and then 2 weeks ago it's against a hapless UMass team that, of course, we best bet against this week with Kent State. I talked about early this season being impressed by Penn State quarterback Beau Pribula, or Penn State transfer quarterback Beau Pribula, being better as expected, a passer in the Tigers offense. And obviously Ahmad Hardy has been fantastic on the ground for them. No doubt that they've been an upgrade from preseason. I definitely believe that Missouri is a formidable team here, but absolutely horrid, strength of schedule thus far. Kansas jumped out early on them. in that game, was up 21-6, and that 6 was a defensive score in that one. South Carolina's Noah Sellers had one of his best passing performances against Mizzou in a game where the Gamecocks were actually up in the second half in that game in Columbia. Neither of those teams were able to get anything against a really good Missouri run defense, and obviously South Carolina can't run the ball anyway. But that's kind of profile similar to what Alabama has. Not great running the ball, and with Ty Simpson and those receivers, they should be able to do exactly what South Carolina did and Kansas did in putting up points against Missouri defense. On the other side, Bama's defense will once again be tested by a mobile quarterback. And Diego Papi, outside of that 36-yard run, was handled a little better. I think we're seeing improvement from the Tide defense in this. Don't get me wrong, Alabama was fortunate with some red zone turnovers from Vandy and a late score to help that cover that we kind of mentioned being on last week. But so from a total perspective, I mentioned Sunday how I don't know how to behave with Alabama totals. Again, from an on-field matchup perspective, this looks like an over, but pace of play once again is going to be down, and that kind of contributes to the under here. So I'm going to be on the sidelines once again in terms of the total. Obviously, we're on record here of being very high on the Tide, and I do have some Alabama -3 in pocket here, despite the money against them here. But I do think they pull out a close one and cover the 3 in Columbia on Saturday.
Moving on to another kind of big prove-it game, the 3:30 CBS game. Indiana currently catching 7.5 at Oregon with a total of 55. Oregon probably has no other team has a win like Oregon, where it aged really poorly very quickly. And now we went into this game thinking we learned a lot about Indiana, and now it looks like we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams. Bobby, how do you see this one breaking down?
Yeah, here we go again with Indiana. Probably the number one team I've had offline conversations with people about how you power rate the Hoosiers, and what they've become over the last 2 years and their meteoric rise. And here we go, another prove-it spot, as we kind of mentioned. If you look at the numbers, you're going to see green on both sides based on the schedules these teams placed and how they've quite frankly dominated all of those games. On Sunday, I talked about the total in this one. And saying how it should be 55 across the board because there were some 54s out there, thinking with disrespect to Penn State that these were both offenses were the best 2 offenses that either would face all year. Well, I'm pausing a little bit more on the total after looking at the matchup. The Hoosiers have been much more methodical this season, ranking poorly in both explosiveness, both rushing, passing, and obviously overall. The Ducks are just average in rushing success rate defense, and the Hoosiers actually run it at a high percentage clip. Attempting to pound the rock with stud running back Roman Hemby. Additionally, both teams rank outside of the top 90 in pace per play, or seconds per play, I should say. So right now, I actually lean under at some of the 55.5s that are available, but won't play myself because of that kind of noted dynamic. Just wanted to clarify something I said, on Sunday as well with this one. If you look at just pure season data, your numbers are going to like the Hoosiers and probably make Oregon probably less than a touchdown favorite. If you have more of roster talent recruiting stars in there, you probably think that, Oregon's the side here. I unfortunately do not have an opinion on that. I do a little bit of a mix myself. So that kind of puts me in this 7.5 zone here. And I'm anxious to find out more about specifically Indiana. Obviously, Oregon probably wins the game, but that's what the market says. But no opinion for me, side or total here. Just rooting for my friend who's a Hoosier alum.
Finally, our People's Choice Game of the Week. This was voted on by you on our CFB 900 Twitter poll. Each and every Tuesday, we put out our Twitter poll. Bobby and I kind of select 4 games that we think probably should be included. We'd like to leave it up to you to go vote. So you guys picked this one. Arizona State currently catching 6 at Utah with a total of 48.5. This is another game that's going to have major conference champion ramifications. Arizona State currently no conference losses. However, if they lose this one, they do also get Texas Tech. So they could have 2 conference losses fairly quickly. For Utah, this gets them right back into the Big 12 conference race. So, Bobby, big-time night game in Utah. How do we see this one playing out?
Yeah, and the winner of this game is very likely to play Texas Tech on that first Saturday in December in the conference title game, especially if Arizona State gets this one here. They have a really nice run out after playing, Utah and Texas Tech next week with the rest of their conference slate. But the Sun Devils have been a team we've kind of discussed a couple times here on the show. Some concerns about the offense being a little bit more clunky than you think, despite some of the star power they have there. They rely a ton on the passing game on wide receiver Jordan Tyson. He has 38 catches on 54 targets this year. No other wide receiver on the team has more than 10 catches and 15 targets on the season. This has led to a low, actually, like despite Sam Levitt, who's a quarterback I like a ton, they actually have a low success rate passing the ball overall. They've leaned on the ground game with Raleek Brown, an Army transfer, Kanye Udo in the mix as well. So I think if they have a hard time, they will have a hard time establishing the run here with a Utah defense that's top 20 in success rate defense and a huge line, just an offensive line yardage edge here in this matchup. Additionally, Utah should be able to get pressure on the quarterback. Levitt's taken 12 sacks on 155 attempts. Not a great clip for the Sun Devils there. On the other side, Utah also wants to attack on the ground, but in terms of success rate, that's been a weakness of the Arizona State Sun Devils defense. So Utah has advantages in both trenches here. I definitely see why they've taken money off the early openers here. And if Dampier can play clean, not turn the ball over, I do expect the Utes to win this one. But my number here is in the five. My raw numbers here in the 5 range with some matchup advantages, obviously mentioned here toward Utah. So the market makes sense for me there. However, on the total, I am interested in going back to the well with some defensive advantages here. I do like the under here, and there should be some weather in this game potentially in the Salt Lake area on Saturday night. We've seen some, if there is a delay of some kind, we've seen that kind of stifle some offenses before, disrupt momentum and whatnot. So again, I like it from a matchup perspective, but another factor. So that makes me like the under 48.5 here.
Moving right along to the market mover segment. Let's go live to the board here. And while we've been recording, I guess it came out that the quarterback for Missouri State will play. So the game kicks off here in 10 minutes. And we've seen Missouri State move from about a -1 favorite down to -3. So, Bobby, what other games should we know about as far as key movement this week headed into not only, I guess, tomorrow night, but also Saturday?
Yeah, so we'll stay right here, 113, 114, ECU Tulane. We've just seen the 7s vanish there. Kind of mentioned that on Sunday night that we kind of suspected that might happen. I'm on market there. I didn't go bet with East Carolina, but some people I know, I think you're one of them, Corey, are on the Pirates there. 127. Yeah, so you threw the 7, good number. 127, 128. UAB, FAU. I'm just noting some two-way movement. Market's pretty stable now, but I saw some two-way movement on that Monday morning. 135, 136. App State, Georgia State. We saw Georgia State get bought in the market this week. That was 3.5 earlier in the week, but now it is much lower than that. As we obviously see the Panthers off a good performance against James Madison and App State fraudulent box score. Hosting Oregon State on Saturday. 153 Toledo, Bowling Green. That one got bet through the 10 this week. Surprised there's no buyback on the Falcons thus far, just as I know they've gotten bought in market a couple times. 157, 158 Kansas, Texas Tech. I'm surprised a little bit by the move on the under here by just numbers and how the game might play out. But I know when I was looking earlier in the week, there was some borderline-ish wind in the Lubbock area. So I'll have to check that forecast on that one, but could be interested in playing back on that move if the weather's clear there in that one. 165, 166, Iowa State, Colorado. The Buffaloes played TCU a little bit closer to the box score there. TCU obviously ran that up in the final minute there. Right. But Iowa State's a team we've seen sold in the market a couple times this week, and they had to battle back to get in that one. We're at Cincy, so again, the market is buying the Buffaloes and against Iowa State once again. 179, 180, Florida, Texas A&M. Total has ticked up from 45, and looking back on this, that's a really sneaky over. If Lagway and the Florida offense is going to take a step forward like we thought they could. This A&M defense can be got, and they have obviously a very explosive offense as well. So that's a sneaky over and one that's ticked up a bit that I'm a little bit interested in. 201, 202, Oklahoma, Texas, Red River shootout. John Mateer, he's very likely going to be listed as questionable when the injury report comes out sometime tonight. It was obviously reported he's trying to give it a go, and CFB 900 sources have confirmed that report. Now, is it realistic that he goes? That's still to be determined. Market total, so obviously the side moved Oklahoma off the 3 to a Texas -1, 1.5 off that information. But the total also ticked up. I grabbed a rogue 44 in that one when that happened earlier today, actually. In that one, that's my preferred pathway if he plays, is not to take a side. I'd rather take the under in that one. And then finally, for the board segment, 205, 206. Game we talked about best bets on Sunday night. We gave out Utah plus 2.5. We see it a little bit different now at Utah State small favorites, 1.5 in market. 2 service releases agreed with us on Tuesday. So that's another reason why to watch and pay attention to the Sunday show. Go Aggies.
Guys, if you don't mind, before we get into best bets, please give this show a like if you're on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review if you're on Spotify. And drop us a comment as well. Let us know what your best bet is for this week. It really means a lot to Bobby and I. We're 2 dudes that love college football. We're doing this not for free. This actually comes out of our pocket to fund all the different technology and things that we need. But we do it for you guys as we're trying to create quality betting content, and we're trying to give back to the community, the betting community that's given so much to Bobby and I. So it really means a lot to Bobby and I supporting the show. So please let us know how we're doing. All right, Bobby. So jumping into best bets, quick recap. Kent State -2.5 against UMass. We like game of the week. We like Michigan catching 2.5 at USC. And as you just previously discussed, we liked and played Utah State plus 2.5, and now they are the short road favorite. So that brings us into our next best bet, a game that you've already talked a little bit about, Arizona State, Utah. We like the under 48.5.
Yep, already mentioned it on the show with the under 48.5 of that one. Broke that one down. Go back and listen to the breakdown if you just want to if you missed it. But yeah, under 48.5, going back to the well with a Utah total this week.
You can follow Bobby at BobbyDigital2 on X. You can follow the show at CFB 900. I will be back here on Friday with the Waterboy breaking down prop bets for the week. Bobby and I will be back here Sunday night, 7 o'clock. Taking a look back at everything that happened in week 7 and also giving you guys a preview of everything upcoming in week 8. Thank you so much for your support of the show. Wishing you the absolute best of luck. Adios.